Hey everyone, it's Gabe Weaver. I'm the Senior Product Manager for the Project Management Group and Plan. We're going to be talking about our goals for 13.8 as we walk through the kickoff for our group. One of the things we're trying to get better at just before we run into things is getting better about planning according to our historical velocity. So our running velocity as a group is 41 weight. So far, we've scheduled 46 weight for this upcoming release with 8 of that weight marked as stretch goals. And some of that is naturally going to flow into 13.9 just due to the size of some of the problems we're solving. But the team did a really good job collaborating and making trade-off decisions and working together to plan a great release. So here we go. We have 3 themes for this upcoming release, and I think you'll probably see these themes be the same things for the next 6 months, if I were to guess. One of them is planning work with iterations. The main focus basically is to provide a great experience for teams that use time boxes to plan, Scrum being the most popular. So we're going to walk through some stuff there, and then we're also going to talk about extensible issues and kind of why that's important from a future of GitLab standpoint. The main problem around this area is that larger companies and organizations can't map GitLab to their business domain and processes. And it's painful, if not like outright impossible, for them to change their domain model to work with the way GitLab is organized. So we need to provide better support there. And then the other thing is going to be usability, sus feedback, and quality of life improvements. So we're going to kind of talk through some high level things that we're going to be doing there. So first, with iterations in 13.8, we're going to add the ability to bulk edit iterations on issues within groups and projects. So right now, iterations, when we released them in one of the early 13. Releases, there's fairly straightforward, but there's no way to bulk edit or bulk update and move issues from one iteration to the next. So this is kind of a minor thing, pretty low hanging fruit, but we're going to make it so within the issue list, you can bulk update iterations. The next thing, we've gotten a lot of feedback from some of our customers that, and the wider community as a whole, that there are lots of different ways that people use groups and projects. GitLab, for example, we have a bunch of teams that all do issue tracking in a single project. We've gotten feedback internally from dogfooding iterations that it's difficult to share the same cadence with a bunch of other teams at the same time. There are other organizations that value that. So one of the things that we're going to be doing to continue to evolve iterations is laying the foundation for supporting what we call iteration cadences. A group may have one or more cadences, and basically within each cadence, you can think of it like a set of iterations. We're going to work towards exposing the ability to name it, to set a start date for your cadence, set the duration for how long you want your iterations to run in a weekly time frame, and then how many iterations in the future you want to automatically schedule or plan. It'll be optional. You can opt into scheduling automatically. New iteration cadences will be by default, and then we're going to work towards automatically rolling issues over. And what this will let users do is set the cadence of how they want to structure their iterations, and then GitLab will handle the management of creating future iterations, moving issues from one to the next, and automatically populating lists and boards based on your upcoming iteration. So you don't have to manually like select, remove a list for your previous iteration, add a new list for a new upcoming iteration. It will sort of all be automated. And then we'll work on extending the dropdown so that you can assign issues to different iteration sets or iterations within a given iteration cadence, and then scope a board to a specific cadence. And that way we know which lists to automatically populate. What this will let us do eventually is have a scenario where issues can be assigned to iterations in groups outside of their hierarchy. They'll be able to basically one team or multiple teams can all work out of one project or many projects and all have issues that link to different iterations in different parts of GitLab, so that there's a little bit more flexibility for how people want to use and structure their iteration cadences and have some autonomy from other teams. Onto extensibility. One of the things that, if you want to read this issue, it's kind of fun. We kind of like thought a little bit into the future about where we were going to end up if we continue making small MVCs on epics, on issues, on some of the things that we need to do for like custom fields. And the amount of duplication that we end up with is pretty astronomical. So one of the things that we really need to be able to do is support the ability for customers to define their own hierarchy that they want, name the objects within the hierarchy what they need to. Some safe organizations will do the epic capability feature user stories. Others will have different names that they want to call these. using labels is not a sufficient way to solve this. It's confusing, it's poor usability. And then within each of these different types of issues, and once you're able to define these relationships, also have the ability to kind of configure the fields that you want to use. And so this is really going to position us for the enterprise to be able to take any data model that is in any competitor's solution, whether that's Jira, version 1, how organizations currently have their issues set up with their fields, and map that one-to-one into GitLab with no data loss, with no anything, because we'll have a flexible enough field model on issues to support moving any structure over, more or less. And this will also unlock the ability to kind of look at some additional small primitives like customizable statuses. We already are going to start customizable types in 13.9 relationships. And then it's about optimizing the different data ways to view this data, whether that's in a timeline view, like a roadmap, a list view, a report view, or a calendar. So one of the things we're doing in 13.8 is we are going to convert the assignees field up here into a standalone widget, which is more or less the same architecture that will be used to kind of power custom fields down the road. The reason why this is also important is that other plan teams or other GitLab teams have started to use issue types and issues to solve their problems. Test cases is a good example where it's actually an issue type and an issue under the hood. Incidents with the health team is another example. And as these teams are wanting to maintain autonomy and push forward with the roadmaps and solving their jobs to be done for their users, they need a good reference architecture for how to build widgets and fields in the way that we want to have them when we eventually want to roll out this kind of level of configurability and customization. So 13.8 is all about kind of a POC for what that reference architecture would look like. And we're going to base that on assignees. On to usability. One of the biggest things that we got in terms of feedback from SUS was the fact that you can't use or in the filter bar. You can use and, you can use not, but you can't use or. And that's a big kind of annoying thing that I've personally run up against quite a few times. And so what we're going to work on at 13.8 is adding the or operator to the filter bar. So it'll work similar like this, where I will go and I'll select maybe an attribute. I can select is, and then you'll be able to select, instead of just one value per key, you can select more than one. And then when you're done with that, it will basically populate out your filter showing the or in the middle. And one thing that we're still kind of testing and figuring out is if we want to allow this to be conditional or switch it to and. That could be confusing, but based on some of the feedback we got, seeing that or is helpful, because some people, if it's just a comma, thought that it was automatically or an implicit and instead of an or. So I think we're going to start making this a disabled kind of selectable filter, and then expand to see if it makes sense to add and there. But what this will let you do is do assignee where you can have multiple assignees. They can be ors, and then you can add and other attributes, other keys, and kind of do a faceted search that way. So excited about this, excited to see, get some feedback from our users when we launch it. Another small usability thing that we're going to be focusing on is the discoverability of quick actions. So Anoop did a great job of challenging me and making me think about the usability of quick actions. I kind of have written them off to a little bit just as being a feature that it should be geared towards more advanced power users. But really, I think it's a good thing to focus on making them discoverable for all GitLab users. And so right now, one of the problems that you sort of have is, as we're down here and we're looking, if I start typing, I only see a maximum of 5 quick actions, when in reality, we have a whole lot of quick actions that are out there that are available, and they're just not discoverable unless I go click through and read this documentation. So what we're going to do in this very small MVC is, instead of limiting it to 5, we're going to populate all of the quick actions that are possible and make it scrollable, so you can select one from the option from this list without having to go read the documentations and get started. Small thing, super trivial, but I'm hoping that it will have a huge impact in terms of usability. Another thing, we've gotten some feedback that there's a security issue a while back that more or less was making math rendering very expensive, and it was causing browsers to basically become exhausted from a resource standpoint and then brick. So we implemented some kind of strict measures to try to lock that down, but we were a little bit too strict there. And it's made using math within the markdown editor, whether that's an issue or a wiki, pretty much unusable, because you have to limit the character size of your math equation to a very small fractional size of what users typically do. And so what we found is there are users who are starting to now not use issues because they can't render math properly, or they're not using wikis the way that they were before. And so this affects all markdown rendering in GitLab. And what we're going to be doing is using a similar approach that we've done with other things, with solving the same problem with large mermaid charts or many mermaid charts within a single issue or markdown editor. We're going to kind of be doing some asynchronous loading there and trying to allow all math rendering to be loaded in chunks instead of just completely breaking it. So excited about that. It's small. And the last big thing, usability. This will be running between 13.8 and 13.9, but we're kicking it off at 13.8, is group level description templates for issues, epics, and merge requests. Epics will probably come after we get the base framework in for issues and merge requests. And instead of creating a new UI or introducing a new UI, we're actually going to extend the file templates UI and piggyback off this feature where within the instance level or the group, you can set a template repository where you pick any repository that's in your hierarchy that you want to use as your reference for templates that all the rest of the projects and groups can use. And so we've already done a POC. Alexander did a great job actually showing me a working version of this, and we need to get it production ready. But what you'll be able to do is at the instance level or at the group level, specify a repo where you have your file templates, but also your description templates. And that will automatically then be populated down to all of your groups, subgroups, and made available so that you can set it once and have it everywhere. And then once this is in place, we'll add the ability for epic templates. So pretty excited about that. Lots of things going on. Sorry, this ran a bit long, but yeah, pretty excited. 13.8 is going to be awesome. The planning issues in the description of the video. If you have any questions, hit me up on any of these issues in GitLab at GWeaver. Have a great day.